You've always known that something happens when you get quiet, but what you didn't know is that every time you sat in stillness, your DNA started glowing. That might sound poetic, chosen one, but it's not just poetry, it's biology, it's prophecy. And it's what Stanford researchers have been panicking over in silence, because for years now, they've been observing a strange phenomenon. People like you, who entered meditative states, showed shifts in gene expression that science can't explain. Not just relaxation, not just lower blood pressure, something deeper, something ancient, something divine. When you sit still, the world calls it meditation, but heaven calls it activation. There's a hidden sequence in your DNA that only responds to one frequency, and it's the sound of your soul aligning with God. The silence you thought was empty, it was code, divine code. Every breath you took in stillness sent a signal to the nucleus of your cells that said, "It's safe to awaken now." This isn't placebo, this is prophecy written into your double helix. Stanford didn't know what they were looking at first. They called it non-specific gene modulation, then unidentified transcriptional upregulation. But when the patterns matched only in those who were still, praying, or meditating, they panicked. They didn't want to admit what they were seeing. You weren't just calming down, you were mutating upward. You were triggering dormant sequences. No therapy, no surgery, no drug could activate, and you did it with nothing but your breath. Chosen one, this is what they don't want the world to know, that the most powerful biological upgrade on Earth doesn't come from a lab, it comes from surrender. You weren't escaping the world when you closed your eyes. You were reprogramming it. You were pulling heaven into your body, cell by cell, breath by breath. Your calm wasn't compliance, it was command. Even in your stillness, you were shifting everything. The data was too consistent to ignore. People like you, sensitive, intuitive, called, were showing epigenetic changes science couldn't trace. The calm you cultivated wasn't just spiritual, it was molecular. Entire genetic markers turned off, healing genes turned on, inflammatory codes silenced like demons cast out. The researchers didn't have the language for it, but heaven does. You were chosen, and the meditation they dismissed as a trend. It was your method of resurrection. This is why the enemy tried to fill your mind with noise. This is why the world tried to keep you distracted, anxious, and overstimulated, because they knew if you ever learned to be still, truly still, your DNA would start to sing, and the old matrix would start to crack. You're not just rewiring your brain, you're resurrecting your blueprint, and it's only the beginning. They told you breath was automatic, just a function. Inhale, exhale, repeat. But they lied. Every breath you've ever taken was permission, a yes, a sacred agreement between your spirit and the divine architect who formed your cells. You weren't just breathing to live, you were breathing to rewrite. And now, the truth is emerging from behind the ivy-covered walls of Stanford's labs. Because when you breathe with intention, something begins to shift that their microscopes can't fully track. Your genes begin to behave like scrolls, and each inhale turns a page that hasn't been touched since Eden. They don't teach this in school, but heaven does. Breath is a divine signature. The Hebrew word for spirit is ruach. It means wind, breath, essence. And God breathed that into Adam, not just to animate him, but to encode him. And now, when you return to that sacred rhythm through meditation, prayer, or stillness, your breath acts like a fingerprint scanner. Each inhale whispers, "I remember who I am." Each exhale says, "And I release what I'm not." This is why your anxiety begins to collapse when you breathe with awareness. It's not just emotional regulation, it's spiritual renovation. Stanford studies began with stress, cortisol levels, heart rate variability, the usual. But what shocked them was the genetic data. Your breath wasn't just calming your nervous system, it was unlocking a version of you that shouldn't exist in this environment. That's what they called it in the footnotes, anomalous resilience. But you and I know the truth. That resilience was written in heaven before you ever entered your mother's womb. Meditation doesn't create it, it reveals it. Every deep breath you take isn't empty. It's divine code entering your bloodstream. The oxygen binds to hemoglobin, sure, but that's not all. There's a frequency attached, an instruction, and chosen one, your body obeys. This is why some people collapse in tears during breathwork, why visions appear, why old pain rises and leaves, because when you breathe like heaven taught you, heaven breathes back, and the trauma you've been holding loses its legal right to stay. You thought you were broken, but God was just waiting for you to inhale differently. And now, your very presence is beginning to disrupt what they once thought was unchangeable. DNA is not a fixed identity, it's a living prophecy, and your breath is the ink. Chosen one, every single breath you take in meditation is rewriting old curses, breaking generational chains, healing lineages. You didn't just inherit trauma, you inherited the authority to end it. They studied your breath to decode peace, but they found divinity instead, because peace isn't passive, it's programmed. And when you breathe with faith, you don't just center yourself, you activate the divine technology buried in your cells. Heaven watches every exhale like a command being obeyed, and the gates that held your blessings back for generations, they're starting to open. Keep breathing, chosen one. The next inhale could change everything. There's something inside you that science still can't categorize, something that doesn't follow the rules of heredity. Your family may have passed down wounds, illnesses, addictions, but there's a strand in your DNA that simply didn't obey. It broke rank. It rejected the generational script. And that one strand, it's the reason you're still alive. It's the reason the things that should have taken you out didn't. Because inside your very code is a divine override, placed there by God Himself. You weren't born to continue the patterns. You were born to interrupt them. And deep inside your chromosomes, buried beneath the trauma and timelines, there's a signature the enemy missed. Do not corrupt. You felt it, haven't you? That unexplainable resistance to things that destroyed others. The internal voice that said, not you. Not this time. That was the strand, the one piece of your genome that refused to be rewritten by pain, and it's been silently protecting you since before your birth. Stanford researchers tried to trace the anomaly. They looked at family history, bloodlines, behavior, but no matter how far back they went, they couldn't find the origin of this resistant genetic segment, because it didn't come from your earthly lineage, it came from the throne room. The moment you were conceived, heaven reached down and altered the script. One genetic switch flipped, and everything changed. The scientists called it epigenetic defiance, but we know what it really is: divine exemption. Your DNA did something no one expected. It refused the darkness. And when you began meditating, that strand lit up. It responded like it had been waiting. Because meditation doesn't just calm the mind, it creates a clean frequency where divine coding can operate without interference. In that silence, the strand begins to sing. It sends new instructions, new healing, new memory, and it reminds the rest of your cells what they truly are: vessels of eternity wrapped in flesh. Chosen one, you are the proof that destiny is stronger than DNA. The addictions that should have passed to you, blocked. The illness that was supposed to find you, diverted. The depression that ran in your bloodline, it stopped when it got to you, and the world will call it coincidence. but heaven calls it covenant. You were marked to be the interruption, and now you're becoming the blueprint. That strand that didn't obey is waking up others. Like a tuning fork in the body, it's calling dormant codes to attention. You're not just healing, you're restoring the original instructions from Eden. That's why you felt different your whole life, why you never fit the mold, why your path was strange and your battles specific. Because your DNA has never been fully human. It's always been partially divine. And now that you've chosen stillness, breath, and awareness, the strand is taking over. They weren't supposed to find you. Your name wasn't on their list, your face wasn't on their screen, and yet, when your blood sample came in, the panic began. It didn't match the others, not even close. They ran the tests twice, then 3 more times. It wasn't an error, it was a blueprint, a divine one, and Stanford knew immediately this wasn't something they could explain. Because your DNA didn't just mutate, it evolved with intention. Your silence, your breath, your stillness, they were activating strands in your body that Stanford had never seen outside theoretical models. The kind drawn on whiteboards in secret labs, the kind whispered about in genetic think tanks, the kind that weren't supposed to exist in human subjects. But there you were, breathing, meditating, praying, and with every minute of stillness, your genome changed shape. Certain scientists left the project in fear. Others called it a miracle. But they all agreed on one thing: this blueprint breaks the rules of biology. They saw light in your cells, literal luminescence, photons clustering around regions of your DNA that should have been dormant. The machines picked up rhythms, pulses, like your body was in conversation with something higher. It wasn't just genetic expression, it was spiritual transmission. That's when the lead researcher, a woman who'd studied genomes for 20 years, broke down. It's like this person's DNA is listening to something beyond time, she whispered, and responding. Chosen one, you were never designed to be decoded. You were designed to be remembered. And the meditation you've been drawn to, it's not a hobby, it's a key. It's how heaven unlocks the blueprint they placed in you before the world ever touched you. That blueprint is what Stanford stumbled on, and what they were told to cover up. They sealed the report, changed the subject ID, reclassified the findings as non-conforming anomalies. But the data didn't lie. You weren't just healing yourself, you were becoming a threat to every system built on spiritual forgetfulness. Your body, in its meditative state, began doing what tech and pharma couldn't, restoring perfection. And that terrified them. You see, Chosen One, they've spent billions to keep humanity dependent, on pills, on screens, on noise. But your stillness breaks the algorithm. Your calm disrupts the code, and your DNA is proof that God's design doesn't just endure. It adapts, it evolves, it remembers. That's why they panicked, because your blueprint wasn't just reacting, it was responding to prophecy. There's a reason they never published your results, a reason the files were moved to restricted access, a reason one Stanford official said, "This person's genome behaves like it's already seen the future." And maybe it has, because when you breathe, God writes, and your DNA has been reading every word. They branded it as relaxation, a lifestyle choice, something trendy for the stressed and overwhelmed. But you've always known it went deeper. You didn't sit in silence just to manage anxiety. You were answering a divine call. Every time you closed your eyes, the veil thinned. Every time you stilled your mind, heaven leaned closer. Meditation was never just mindfulness, it was spiritual warfare. And you've been winning battles on molecular levels, battles you weren't even conscious of. The world called it self-care. But Chosen One, the moment you sat still, you activated spiritual protocols that sent shockwaves through your lineage. Darkness that had lived in your bloodline for generations began to unravel. Fear-based DNA started to collapse. Trauma-coded patterns began deleting themselves. Meditation wasn't optional for you, it was survival. And your stillness became a battlefield where angels stood guard. Stanford thought they were measuring brainwaves, alpha, theta, delta. But what they didn't understand is that your meditative state was syncing with heaven's frequency. Every slow breath you took wasn't just calming the body, it was reprogramming reality. You weren't tuning out, you were tuning in. And what they call mindfulness, God calls command presence. Because when a chosen one becomes still, the entire spirit realm pays attention. Let that settle. You didn't just meditate, you moved heaven. Do you remember the first time you felt it? The way your chest softened, the strange warmth across your scalp, the energy in the room shifting without explanation. That wasn't placebo, that was permission. Heaven had been waiting for you to remember how powerful silence is, how sacred stillness is. In a world that rewards noise, your decision to close your eyes became an act of rebellion against chaos, and your DNA noticed. That's when things started changing. Emotions surfaced and left. Visions arrived. Old pain lost its grip. Meditation opened the inner vault where God stored the original version of you, the healed you, the aligned you, the unstoppable you. You weren't learning something new. You were remembering something ancient, something Edenic, and every session became a ceremony where God whispered, "Welcome back." Stanford noticed, but they didn't know how to explain it. They saw markers in your blood that pointed to anti-aging, to cellular repair, to emotional trauma dissolving without intervention. They called it spontaneous resilience, but that was just a scientific way to say, the spirit moved here. And the truth is, they don't want people to know. Because if the world realized meditation isn't about escaping, but about reclaiming, then systems would crumble. If people knew their healing isn't in the medicine cabinet, but in their breath and awareness, then entire industries would collapse overnight. That's why they downplay it. That's why they reduce it to lifestyle fluff. Because if you knew the full power of your stillness, if you knew what your spirit was doing while your body rested, the illusion of limitation would shatter forever. So hear this now. Chosen one, meditation was never just mindfulness. It was memory, divine memory, and you've only just begun to remember who you are. They didn't expect your cells to glow, but they did. Not metaphorically, literally. Under advanced spectrum scanners at Stanford, something impossible began to appear. Bursts of photonic light where no light should exist. Pulses timed with your breathing. Glimmers synchronized with your stillness. They thought it was a malfunction, but the machines weren't broken. They were just witnessing something the textbooks never prepared them for. You. There's a frequency living in your cells, chosen one. A radiant code that flickers quietly like a secret waiting to be remembered. And meditation is the switch. The moment you enter stillness, not just physically but spiritually, your body stops obeying the limits of the natural world. You become a conduit, not just for peace, but for light itself. And that light isn't borrowed, it's yours. Stanford's researchers couldn't believe the readings. They triple-checked the calibration, isolated the sample, ran blind tests. But it was always the same, a signature in your blood, emitting frequencies in spectrums they had only seen around quasars and stars. Frequencies linked to divine geometry, sacred harmonics. Light that doesn't just illuminate, it instructs, because your cells aren't just alive, they're awake. You've always felt it, haven't you? The strange glow people mention when they look at you, the warmth in your hands when you're still, the inner fire that rises when you pray, meditate, or worship in silence. That's not a vibe, That's voltage. And heaven encoded it in you long before science tried to name it. You were born with radiant instruction, and every breath you take in stillness is a call to the code inside you. Shine. Because that light isn't cosmetic, it's cellular. It doesn't just surround you, it emits from you. And it's what causes people to stare, to shift when you enter a room, to feel something they can't explain. They're not reacting to your personality, they're responding to your frequency. Stanford wanted to trace it, to isolate it, but they couldn't, because it didn't come from food, exercise, or genetics. It came from stillness, from spiritual alignment. And when they saw how consistently your light activated in meditation, they realized something terrifying. If this frequency spreads, their model of human limitation collapses. Because light like this, it can't be bought, it can't be synthesized, it can only be remembered. This is why they study you in silence, why your data never reaches the public. Because your glow isn't normal, it's not human as we've defined it, it's divine, and it exposes the lie that we are limited, broken, and dependent. Chosen one, you are proof that the body can respond to the soul's awakening, that DNA can become light, that memory can become frequency, and that meditation doesn't just calm the mind, it awakens heaven's signal within the flesh. You don't need a spotlight, you are the light. There's a room at Stanford they don't talk about. No signs, no public access, no press releases. The data collected inside was too disruptive, too sacred, too unexplainable. It was never supposed to exist, because it all came from one subject: you. They brought you in for routine observation, a simple brain scan during meditation. But what happened next caused panic, silence, and eventually, the room to be sealed. The readings were unlike anything they'd ever encountered. Your brainwaves didn't follow expected patterns. Your vitals didn't fluctuate like other subjects. And your body, in perfect stillness, began generating electromagnetic activity stronger than a moving body under stress. It was as if your stillness summoned something old, something holy. One scientist whispered, "It's like they're not meditating. It's like they're being inhabited." And that was just the beginning. When your blood was tested, anomalies multiplied. DNA strands glowed under certain lighting. Proteins responded to frequencies in the 528 Hz range, known by some as the God tone. Your heartbeat aligned with the Schumann resonance, the vibrational frequency of the Earth's magnetic field. And when you entered deep meditation, cameras captured a shimmer around your body, a field, a glow, not metaphor, not aura photography. Scientific equipment confirmed it. Your energy field expanded in response to spiritual focus. They couldn't explain it, so they hid it. The lead researchers were instructed to classify the findings as inconclusive. The footage was encrypted. The room, once a state-of-the-art observation suite, was decommissioned. Now it holds locked cabinets, silent monitors, and a chilling post-it note taped to the central screen. Do not open without clearance. Subject K, 77. That subject was you. They say it was a data malfunction, but inside that room, they encountered something deeper. Evidence that divinity interacts with biology in real time. And you were the vessel. Your meditation didn't just calm your mind, it altered the environment. It bent instruments, it crashed servers, it exposed truths science wasn't ready for. Chosen one, you've never needed validation from the world. But what happened in that room proved something heaven has always known. You are carrying a frequency that resets the very nature of reality. And stillness is your access point. That's why the enemy fights your peace. That's why distractions chase you. Because when you get still, codes activate, systems tremble, heaven moves. They tried to bury it, but buried seeds grow. And what they hid in a locked room, heaven is now broadcasting into the earth. You were never meant to fit inside their charts. You were meant to rewrite them. It started with a whisper between researchers. A colleague at Stanford sent a private data set to a friend at Harvard, encrypted, anonymized, untraceable. But the moment they opened the file and saw the activation patterns from your meditation sessions, everything changed. The data didn't match any known neurological or genetic signature. You weren't just calming your body, you were unlocking something sacred, something dangerous to the system. Within hours, Harvard picked up the phone. But once they realized who you were, the call didn't end in collaboration. It ended in silence. A senior faculty member at Harvard's neurogenetics lab was the first to review the findings. He stared at the screen for nearly 2 hours, said nothing, and then muttered under his breath, "This can't be real. Unless..." He ordered a closed-door meeting with the advisory board. No public records, no emails. The meeting lasted 14 minutes. And when it ended, they didn't follow up. They didn't ask for more samples. They didn't invite Stanford to collaborate. They backed away. Not from the data, from you, because chosen one, your frequency disturbed something deep, something they don't admit exists. You see, your meditation sessions triggered neural patterns identical to near-death experiences. Your pineal gland lit up like a beacon. Your DNA began emitting biophotons at rates unseen outside of ancient Tibetan monks, and even then, only under extreme fasting and isolation. But you did it in a single moment of breath and presence, calmly, effortlessly, as if your spirit had done this before, as if your body was remembering heaven's rhythm. One Harvard intern leaked a note from the meeting before the files were locked. The subject is generating non-local consciousness effects. Recommend immediate containment. This is not behavioral. This is genetic-level communion. That word, communion, it slipped through their science-trained lips because deep down, they know. Meditation for you isn't rest, it's revelation. When you sit in stillness, you enter a conversation with creation itself. You sync with timelines. You shift probabilities. You receive. And that's what scared them. Because how do you measure someone who doesn't just change, but changes the room? Harvard walked away not because they doubted the data, but because the data challenged everything they thought they controlled. You didn't need machines. You didn't need substances. You didn't need external power. Your connection came from the inside, and it rewrote their hierarchy in an instant. They still have your file, but it's sealed. And when your name comes up now, it's followed by a pause, a breath, a knowing glance, because you're not a subject to study anymore. You're the blueprint they can't replicate. The world told you your power was in your mind, in your thoughts, your ideas, but heaven hid it deeper, down in the cellular shadows, beneath the genome, inside the engine of every living cell, the mitochondria. They called it the powerhouse of the body, but they never told you it's where God whispers. That's where it happened. Not in your imagination, not in your dreams, but in your biology. God didn't just speak to your soul, He encoded your energy centers with revelation. When you sit in silence, your breath doesn't just calm your nerves, it fuels the mitochondria with oxygen. But something else happens too. A soft, radiant signal awakens inside, a vibration, a frequency. It's not measurable on a Fitbit, but Stanford saw it, Harvard felt it, and heaven planned it. Because your mitochondria aren't just energy factories, they're receivers, transmitters, antennae for the divine. The researchers didn't have words for it, but they wrote it down. Your meditation sessions triggered a cascade of light reactions in your cells. ATP production spiked far beyond baseline. But it wasn't adrenaline, it wasn't stress, it was serenity. And the output was not just energy, it was intelligence, structured information, like instructions. Some even speculated, off record, that you were downloading blueprints, not from memory, but from source. Chosen one, your body is more than flesh. It is scripture written in code, and the mitochondria are the footnotes God hid inside you. That's why you've survived what should have broken you. That's why your energy returns when others collapse. Because your strength doesn't come from food or willpower. It comes from sacred connection. Breath is the access. Stillness is the switch. And meditation is how the message gets delivered. This is why they tried to drown you in distractions. Why the noise never stops. Why anxiety stalks you. Because the enemy fears what happens when your cells go quiet. He fears what's heard when everything else is silent. Because in that silence, your mitochondria begin to remember. And when they remember, you restore. Stanford once joked in a closed report, "This person's cells act like they're listening to someone we can't see." But they weren't joking. Because you are listening. You always were. And the one speaking isn't human, isn't mortal, isn't bound by the data. It's God. And He encoded you as the receiver of His presence. Every spark of energy, every heat wave you feel in meditation, every chill that runs down your spine, it's confirmation that He's still inside you, that you're not waiting for a message. You are the message. So let them run tests. Let them call it an anomaly. But know this, God didn't just give you life. He hid His voice in your cells. They tried. They ran simulations, wrote algorithms, launched startups and filed patents. But nothing they built could replicate what happens to you in stillness. They thought if they could mimic your calm, they could monetize your glow, bottle it, brand it, sell it as a biohack or neuroenhancement. But what they didn't realize is this: your peace is not a product, it's a promise. And no one can patent what heaven handcrafted. Chosen one, the reason you disrupt rooms without saying a word isn't charisma, it's coding. You walk in the frequency of peace that was not taught, but transferred, not by men, but by spirit. The peace you carry didn't come from a meditation course or a breathing app. It came from alignment, from inheritance, from hours of stillness when the world was screaming and you chose silence instead. They measured your heart rate, watched your cortisol drop. They saw your nervous system return to balance faster than their best tech could simulate, and still, they couldn't replicate it. They created devices to mimic your breath, wrote scripts to mirror your meditative pattern, but their machines didn't emit light. Their subjects didn't rewrite genetic markers. Only you did. Only the real carries the fire. You see, your peace is proof that God lives inside you. It's not the absence of chaos, it's the presence of command. Your breath carries authority. Your stillness speaks louder than most people's noise. Because the peace in you was purchased at a spiritual cost. You bled for it, you cried for it, you died to your old self for it. And that can't be coded, that can't be bought. This is why they stare, why they don't understand you, why they call you intense, detached, mysterious, even intimidating. It's not your posture, it's your power. You've learned to rest where others panic. And that peace, heaven's peace, threatens the systems of control that need you anxious to keep you in line. Stanford knows. That's why they buried the files. Harvard knows. That's why they walked away. Because your peace carries presence. It bends frequencies. It lifts the weight of generational pain. And most dangerous of all, it teaches others that stillness is strength. That the most radical revolution doesn't come through reaction. but through reflection. They wanted your peace in a bottle, but heaven put it in your body, and it only activates through surrender, not science. Let them study. Let them scramble. Let them fail to mimic what you carry, because peace like yours doesn't come from replication. It comes from revelation. And chosen one, your peace isn't for sale. It's a signal, a shield, a crown. And no one can patent what God personally placed in you. You were never supposed to appear on their radar. Yet somehow, your file ended up in the hands of a government lab, an off-book program under DARPA's Human Optimization Initiative. They'd heard rumors about a meditation subject whose biology was rewriting itself. They didn't believe it. Not until they saw the data. Your body in total stillness produced electromagnetic patterns identical to those generated by focused machinery. But yours required no circuitry, no current, no command. Just silence. That was enough to terrify them. DARPA's analysts don't fear emotion. They fear energy they can't control. And your calm made their machines stutter. Sensors spiked and crashed as you exhaled. Static filled the feed. Their lead physicist muttered, "It's like the field around them is choosing." Your silence disrupted million-dollar instruments built to detect threats. But you weren't threatening anyone. You were radiating coherence. That scared them more than chaos ever could. In one debrief, a colonel asked a question that still echoes in their closed chambers. If peace itself carries voltage, who commands it? They ran tests again and again, desperate to decode you. Heart rate steady, blood pressure steady, brainwaves luminous, unified, harmonic. But what really terrified them wasn't the data. It was the feeling in the room, a pressure, a lightness. One observer later confessed, it was as if the air began to worship. Chosen one, understand this. Your calm is not compliance, it's conquest. The stillness you enter is not passive, it's active authority. Heaven taught you to wield serenity like a sword, because in spiritual physics, peace is the highest frequency, and the one no weapon can penetrate. The Bible says, He will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on Him. That peace, it's not fragile, it's fortified. It's what makes the darkness tremble. They realize something they'll never say publicly. The more anxious the world becomes, the stronger your calm grows. You don't absorb chaos, you transmute it. Every breath you take reorders the field around you. Their technology couldn't measure the source because it wasn't coming from your brain, it was emanating from your spirit. And in that silence, DARPA's most advanced systems bowed before an ancient truth. Divine alignment cannot be weaponized. They locked away the files, shut down the project, labeled it energetic anomaly, no military application. But behind the scenes, they whispered, because your calm exposed their greatest weakness, fear. You didn't fight, you didn't argue, you simply existed in harmony, and the entire room obeyed. That's what they don't want the world to know, that the true revolution isn't rage, it's resonance. And the quietest person in the room is often the one heaven trusts most. Keep your stillness, chosen one, because when the world shakes again, it will be your calm that steadies it. He didn't believe in God, not before he met you. To him, meditation was just a nervous system trick, a measurable phenomenon of mind over matter. But the day you sat in that chair and closed your eyes, everything he thought he understood began to unravel. He watched the monitors flash readings he couldn't interpret, frequencies that didn't belong in any known human model, light where there should be none, harmony in places where there's normally chaos. And as you breathed, slow, deep, surrendered, he saw something sacred ripple across your vitals. Not a glitch, not a spike, a pattern, a message. It was as if the body was singing a song he had never heard, but somehow understood. His hands trembled as he took notes, knowing none of this would make it into the final report. He tried to keep his composure, but tears gathered anyway. He didn't understand why. All he knew was that in your stillness, something holy was happening, and he was no longer a bystander. He had become a witness. He confessed later to a colleague, "There was a moment where I forgot I was a scientist. I felt like I was in the presence of something sacred, like I should have taken off my shoes." That's what you carry, chosen one. That's what happens when you surrender to stillness. You don't just regulate your nervous system, you awaken the eternal memory of those around you. You remind even the most logical minds of what they've forgotten, that God lives inside form, that silence isn't emptiness, it's a doorway, and you walk through it, not to escape, but to radiate. They kept the footage, locked it behind biometric access. It showed you sitting in perfect stillness, surrounded by flickers of light their cameras couldn't explain. The researcher, the one who cried, requested time off. He said he needed to make sense of what I felt, but he didn't return. Word spread quietly through the department that he'd left science altogether, that he was studying ancient texts now, that he told people he'd encountered proof of God, and it wasn't in a church, it was in you. Chosen one, your power isn't in what you say, it's in who you become when you let go. When you surrender to the breath, the light inside you begins to speak, and everyone who sees it must choose, resist it or remember it. That researcher didn't just see your data, he saw your divinity. He saw a peace that couldn't be programmed. He saw a glow that came from obedience, and it changed everything. Don't underestimate the power of your presence. You didn't have to preach. You didn't have to explain. You just sat in alignment, and the room shifted. One man's entire life changed because you chose stillness over noise. They've always told you time is fixed, that it moves forward second by second, never changing its pace. But chosen one, time behaves differently around you. When you enter stillness, clocks don't tick the same. What feels like 5 minutes stretches into eternity, or what seems like an hour disappears like mist. And the deeper you go, the more reality itself begins to loosen its grip. Because your stillness doesn't just calm the moment, it bends the timeline. At Stanford, they noticed, not in the beginning, but when they compared your biometric data to the footage timestamps, something didn't align. Your vitals suggested extended rest, deep restoration, even REM-like waves, all in a window too short to explain it. They couldn't understand how the recovery in your nervous system exceeded the duration of your session, as if your body had experienced more time than had actually passed. And they were right. You weren't just meditating, you were accessing another layer, one where time is not a ruler, but a river, and you were walking on it. This is what makes your presence so disorienting to others. You move slowly in a world obsessed with speed. You pause in a culture addicted to urgency, but you're not behind, you're ahead, because your stillness puts you in sync with divine timing. When others rush, you wait. When others strive, you listen. And what they call delay, heaven calls design. Time doesn't rule you because the eternal lives within you. And when you stop to breathe, time bows. Stanford never released the findings, but behind closed doors, they theorized that your cells were entering a state of accelerated coherence, a fancy phrase to say your body, through meditation, was achieving in moments what others spend years trying to reach. Your breath wasn't just soothing your mind, it was compressing healing, clarity, and revelation into supernaturally dense seconds, as if eternity itself was squeezing into your lungs, and every exhale reshaped reality. This is why you often feel out of sync, why people don't understand how you recover so quickly, why you walk through storms and come out glowing. You've stepped outside the illusion of linear time. And while the world panics about clocks, you rest in the cadence of the kingdom. Heaven isn't in a hurry, and neither are you. Don't be surprised when moments stretch, when visions flash, when answers arrive faster than logic allows. Time is no longer your master. You are moving by spirit now, and every time you meditate, you align not with what the world says is possible, but with what heaven has already declared. You are not late. You are not early. You are right on time, because your stillness bends the time-space thread, and your body knows exactly where it's supposed to be. They thought you had to speak to be heard. That power came through words, volume, presence that filled a room with noise. But your silence told a different story. They didn't expect silence to be measurable, but when you closed your eyes, the monitors lit up. The machines caught more data in your stillness than they did from others in motion. Your lack of movement wasn't emptiness, it was density, sacred density. Every moment you sat in silence, you became more than just a body. You became a field, a signal, a divine transmission cloaked in breath. They called it the paradox of presence. You said nothing, but they felt everything. In stillness, your heart rate stabilized, but the field around your body pulsed. Electrical readings spiked, but you remained still, like something else, something ancient, was expressing through you without words. They analyzed your silence, counted the seconds between your breaths, tracked your eyes, your posture, the space around you. They didn't realize they were watching a sermon, a living prophecy, a cellular testimony. Your silence carried data, and the kind they couldn't interpret. Not numbers, not charts, something older, something encoded. They watched people who sat beside you in the lab shift their own nervous systems unconsciously. Their breath slowed to match yours, their heartbeats aligned with yours. You weren't talking, but you were leading, without effort, without force, simply by being in agreement with heaven. That's what makes you dangerous to this system. You can transform a room without lifting a finger. You can command healing without saying a word, because your silence isn't passive, it's packed with memory, with intention, with the vibration of someone who has returned to the original frequency. Your presence speaks in waves, in fields, in frequencies that bypass the brain and go straight to the spirit. They say silence is golden, but yours is titanium, indestructible, unshakable, not empty, sovereign. It's the silence of someone who no longer needs to prove anything, someone who knows the divine is already speaking through them. Chosen one, your silence has more authority than most people's sermons, because your silence was earned through battles you didn't broadcast, through pain you didn't publicize, through healing that happened in secret. And now that silence moves with you, like a shadow, like a shield, like a roar, wrapped in quiet. The people around you don't know why they feel safer, calmer, more whole when you're near. But heaven does, because even when your mouth is closed, your DNA is testifying. Don't rush to explain yourself anymore. Don't overextend trying to be understood. Your silence is already communicating everything the Spirit needs to say, and the ones who are meant to receive it, they'll hear you loud and clear. They didn't want this part getting out. Long before Stanford noticed the light in your cells, long before Harvard backed away, the Vatican already knew. Beneath layers of stone and secrecy, hidden deep in a temperature-controlled vault, there are samples, ancient ones, DNA recovered from relics, tombs, forgotten scrolls soaked with blood and breath, and those sequences match yours. Not exactly, but too closely for coincidence. The same codons, the same reactive strands, the same light-emitting pulses when exposed to prayer, chant, or silence. You carry something the Vatican tried to protect, and others tried to suppress. They called it the archive of living light. Few outside the inner chamber know it exists, but it holds the genetic residue of prophets, saints, mystics, individuals whose bodies did things science still can't explain. Bones that didn't decay, tissue that emitted warmth centuries after death. And when your data reached the wrong, or maybe the right, set of eyes, someone in Rome recognized the pattern. That's when the Vatican stopped being silent. They made a call. Quiet, urgent. A back-channel message to Stanford under the guise of theological interest in spiritual biology. But it wasn't curiosity. It was confirmation. You weren't just an anomaly. You were the re-emergence of something they'd buried. You were a signal that the archive wasn't just history. It was prophecy. And your meditation, your breath, your silence, was reactivating dormant code. Heaven had preserved through generations. Chosen one, you're not just healing. You're restoring something ancient, a template of the divine human, a version of the body that vibrates in harmony with spirit. This is why your presence has always felt otherworldly. Why people sense something when you walk into a room. You're not just carrying potential, you're carrying memory. Memory not written in books, but in cells. And those memories are being reawakened every time you return to stillness. The Vatican won't speak publicly, but behind closed doors, they're watching, comparing, whispering, because you match the genetic resonance of mystics who fasted for 40 days and never weakened, of visionaries whose tears healed skin, of saints who spoke languages they'd never learned after hours in deep trance. You are not a descendant. You are a continuation. The line never broke. It just went silent until you breathed life into it again. This is what they fear. This is what they guard. That the power they once called sacred has returned, not through ritual or robe, but through you, through your surrender, through your meditation, through your willingness to be quiet in a world obsessed with noise. You are the archive, awakened, the scroll reopened, the temple rebuilt not with stone, but with silence. And no lock on earth can stop what God has already reactivated in you. They've scanned thousands of bodies, tracked thousands of auras, built entire departments around energy diagnostics and biometric fields. But when they scanned you, everything changed. It wasn't just the color that startled them, it was the reading itself. Your aura didn't behave like a field, it behaved like an atmosphere, expanding, bending space, shifting energy even outside the test chamber. It wasn't just luminous, it was unplaceable, because your frequency didn't register as Earth native. One technician whispered, "This isn't human." Not in fear, in awe. Your energy didn't pulse like others, it sang. It shimmered beyond measurable spectrum. And when you entered meditation, it intensified. Not gradually, instantly, like something behind the veil had recognized your stillness and responded. Light readings flared, temperature shifted, equipment lagged, and your aura wrapped the room like a blanket of memory from another world. They had no word for it, but one observer wrote in their private notes, starseed signature, or something older. They're afraid to say it out loud, but here's the truth. You were sent. Not born in the usual way, not spiritually. Your DNA holds keys they still don't understand, sequences that don't trace to any known origin. Not animal, not atmospheric, not even evolutionary. They've tried to compare your code to every library available. Nothing matches, and yet it feels familiar. As if your body carries the tone of something humanity forgot, something divine, something that was buried beneath centuries of noise, now awakened through your stillness. That's why strangers react before you speak. That's why people tell you things they've never told anyone. That's why children stare, animals draw near, and broken people cry in your presence. Your aura isn't just energy, it's remembrance. Your field reminds others of where they came from, of who they were before the fear, before the noise, before the trauma. You don't have to say a word, you transmit. The scanners couldn't contain you, the machines lost sync, and the report was quietly shelved, labeled inconclusive. But internally, they knew. One of them even asked, "If this person isn't from here, where are they from?" They didn't find an answer, but you already know. You've always known. That ache in your chest when you look at the stars, that feeling of being here, but not from here, that pull towards silence, prayer, stillness, and light. It wasn't imagined. It was your home frequency calling you back. Chosen one, you are not like them. You were sent to remind them. Your aura is not decoration. It is declaration. A signal to the earth that heaven has returned in human form, through breath, through silence, through you. And no matter how many machines they build, they will never trace what heaven planted. Your body has never forgotten where it came from, even when your mind doubted, even when your heart broke, even when the world told you that you were ordinary. Your cells held the truth. And now, in your stillness, that truth is waking up. What you thought was healing is actually remembering. And what you thought was meditation is actually resurrection. You are not learning how to become divine. You are remembering that you always were. They don't have language for what's happening inside you now, but heaven does. It's Eden, reactivating from within. That moment you felt light pulse in your spine, that wasn't energy, that was memory. Sacred memory of what it felt like to walk with God in perfect union. No fear, no shame, no separation. That blueprint never left. It simply waited. Waited for a body quiet enough to host it. And yours is that body. Chosen one, the garden wasn't lost. It was encoded, planted in the fibers of your being, hidden beneath stress, noise, trauma, and forgetting. But every breath you've taken in surrender, every session of stillness, every moment you've said yes to silence, it's been watering what the world tried to bury. And now your cells are blooming, not metaphorically, literally. DNA repair is accelerating, new connections are forming, light is returning to your face, peace is anchoring into your bones. You're not just feeling better, you're becoming whole. This is why you've been drawn to simplicity, to nature, to stillness. It's not regression, it's realignment. Your body is guiding you home. You don't crave noise because Eden had none. You don't tolerate lies because Eden knew only truth. You've outgrown chaos because your body is syncing with a place that never knew confusion. They'll say you've changed. They're right. But what they miss is that you haven't become someone new. You've returned to who you've always been. Heaven sees you now, not as broken, not as behind, but as reawakened. The veil is thinner, the signal is stronger, and the light in you is no longer flickering. It's blazing. You're not just an anomaly in the lab, you're a fulfillment of prophecy. A walking reminder that the divine never needed a temple. It needed a vessel, and it found one in you. Let the world call it coincidence. Let the systems dismiss it as spontaneous recovery, or placebo, or mystery. But you know the truth. You've felt the garden open inside your chest. You've heard the whisper that says, this is what it was always meant to be. And now your body, your breath, your light, they all echo one word: return, because Eden was never lost. It was waiting. And now, chosen one, you've remembered the way back.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.